It was, without question, one of the most remarkable speeches ever delivered at the World Economic Forum. The new Argentinian president, Javier Milei, stunned the demons in Davos with truth bomb after truth bomb, defending Western civilization against the onslaught of the WEF's socialist tyrannical aspirations. And you are going to get a front row seat for this epic takedown. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. It's the speech that's being talked about all over the world. The new libertarian Argentinian president, Javier Milei, visited the Swiss mountain village of Davos and fired with both barrels, delivering a blistering excoriation of the devious plans that the demons in Davos have for the West, causing Klaus Schwab to absolutely squirm in his seat. Milei's speech began by warning them that they were abandoning freedom for socialism, which only ends up producing poverty and misery.
Today, I am present to inform you that the Western world is facing a significant threat. It is in danger because those who are supposed to defend the values of the Western world are co-opted by a worldview that inevitably leads to socialism and consequently to poverty and economic deprivation. Unfortunately, in recent decades, motivated by some well-intentioned desires to help others and others by the desire to belong to a privileged caste, the main leaders of the Western world have abandoned the model of freedom for different versions of what we call collectivism. We are here to tell you that collectivist experiments are never the solution to the problems that afflict the citizens of the world, but rather they are their cause. Now, when studying per capita GDP from 1800 to today, what is observed is that after the Industrial Revolution, global per capita GDP multiplied by more than 15 times, generating an explosion of wealth that lifted 90% of the world's population out of poverty. We must never forget that by the year 1800, about 95% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty, while that number dropped to 5% by the year 2020, prior to the pandemic. The conclusion is obvious. Far from being the cause of our problems, free market capitalism as an economic system is the only tool we have to end hunger, poverty, and destitution throughout the planet.
Now, what Milei is saying there has actually been developed in even greater depth by the Harvard economic historian David S. Landis in his landmark study, The Wealth and Poverty of Nations, Why Some Are So Rich and Some So Poor. And his basic thesis for the wealth and poverty of nations is actually very simple. Rich nations are once poor nations that developed free market economies, while poor nations did not. And the key to the thesis is that free market economies require governments that fundamentally do two things. One, they do not interfere with people's economic affairs. They don't hinder economic endeavors. And two, the governments protect private property rights. Right? Every poor nation contradicts those two premises. Landis found that every nation mired in poverty interfered in the economic affairs of its citizens and failed in protecting private property rights. That's the basic argument, and that's precisely what Javier Milei schooled the demons in Davos in. But as it turns out, he was just getting warmed up. Hey gang, you know how much UFC fighters love President Trump and how much he loves them, but have you ever wondered what they do to manage their pain? Well, you don't have to, because a fellow patriot and good friend of this channel is precisely the one who provides relief to that pain, and he's here to do the same for you. Now, we all know that as we age, aches and pains, they're normal, but they don't have to be. And that's where the groundbreaking medical scientist Clint Winters comes in. Now, you've seen Clint on Fox. You've seen him a number of times on this channel. Clint's a world-renowned health expert who's unveiled a natural pain reliever that's taking the world by storm. It's called ConoCB2. It's the 100% drug-free way to get full-body pain relief without dangerous meds, and it is the official pain reliever for the fighters in the UFC. So whatever you do, make sure to click on the link below right now and check out Clint's amazingly informative report on how ConoCB2 is changing lives by providing safe and powerful relief at a fraction of the cost of pain pills. Click on that link below right now.
Now, if free market capitalism and economic freedom have been remarkable instruments to eradicate poverty globally, and we are presently experiencing the most favorable period in human history, it is worth inquiring why I assert that the West is in jeopardy. I argue that the West is endangered as in countries defending free market, private property, and other institutions of libertarianism, sectors of the political and economic establishment, due to errors in their theoretical framework and ambition for power, undermine libertarianism, opening doors to socialism and potentially condemning us to poverty, misery, and stagnation. Because it should never be observed that socialism is always and everywhere impoverishing, failed in all countries where attempted. It was a failure economically, it was a failure socially, it was a failure culturally, and it also killed more than 100 million human beings. The main problem of the West today is that we not only have to confront those who, even after the fall of the wall and overwhelming evidence, continue to advocate for impoverishing socialism, but also our own leaders, thinkers, and academics who, sheltered in a misguided framework, undermine the foundations of the system that has given us the greatest wealth and prosperity in our history.
Now, there Milei is taking to task what we talked about in yesterday's video, and that's Klaus Schwab's notion of what's called stakeholder capitalism. Now, stakeholder capitalism is generally presented as a system in which corporations are oriented to supposedly serve the interests of the general population at large, not just investors, but the population at large, because as they say, we're all stakeholders in a more just, fair, equitable, and sustainable society. And so stakeholder capitalism involves instituting what is commonly referred to as ESG. That stands for environmental, social, and governance criteria. And that refers to literal scores that corporations get in relation to those key areas so that investors can show they're investing in companies that advance left-wing social justice goals, and that includes green energy, racial equity, and the like. It's basically the attempt to pressure companies to become more and more woke. We talked about this yesterday. And so that's why Milei sees socialism and wokeness going hand in hand.
Given the resounding failure of collectivist models and the undeniable advances of the free world, socialists were forced to change their agenda. They left behind the class struggle based on the economic system to replace it with other supposed social conflicts equally harmful to community life and economic growth. The first of these new battles was the ridiculous and unnatural fight between man and woman. Libertarianism already establishes equality between sexes. The cornerstone of our creed states that all men are created equal, that we all have the same unalienable rights granted by the Creator, among which are life, liberty, and property. This radical feminism agenda has led to increased state intervention, hindering the economic process. It provides jobs to bureaucrats who haven't contributed anything to society, whether through women's ministries or international organizations promoting this agenda.
So as you can see, Milei sees feminism and the war between the genders, as he put it, inextricably linked to socialist ends, precisely because they lost the class warfare argument and that socialist economies simply couldn't compete with capitalist ones. Socialists then, in turn, switched to a cultural warfare argument, arguing that without their constant intervention, society will forever be marred by unfairness and inequity. And Milei is like, that's absurd. You cannot be a truly free market society by definition with people being oppressed. So this whole feminist fad is utter and complete nonsense. And he went on to slam apocalyptic environmentalism and its propensity to redefine free human choices as potentially detrimental to the planet. He slammed the cultural Marxist takeover of our universities and colleges, and he slammed the whole social justice movement that ultimately always ends up with nothing other than radical injustice. Here's how Milei finished it all off, exhorting patriot entrepreneurs and freedom lovers all over the world.
Don't be intimidated by the political caste or the parasites who live off the state. Don't yield to a political class that only wants to prolong its power and preserve its privileges. You are social benefactors. You are heroes. You are the creators of the most extraordinary era of prosperity we have ever experienced. Don't let anyone say ambition is immoral. If you earn money, it's because you provide a superior product, better price, contributing to well-being. Do not yield to the advance of the state. The state is not the solution. The state is the problem itself. You are the true protagonists of this story, and know that from today, you have Argentina as an unconditional ally. Thank you very much, and long life freedom, damn it.
Long live freedom, damn it. Long live freedom. That was, without a doubt, the most epic speech ever given at the WEF, and one that I'm sure will be looked back on as a fixed point in history when the world told the demons in Davos to shove it. As many of you know, we have unfortunately been completely and totally demonetized, which is putting our daily communication with one another at risk like never before. Now, we are actively working on getting this resolved, but as things stand, this channel has, without any warning, been totally and completely demonetized. And as Elon Musk said so powerfully last week, the whole point of these demonetization efforts is to deliberately try to make us patriots feel like we're all alone. They want to sever our relationship with each other and force on us a kind of digital solitary confinement so as to demoralize us and discourage us like never before. But to their horror, it's not working. Over this past week, you have carried this channel like never before. We've had more people than ever make the courageous decision to bypass big tech and join our Insiders Club. We have direct access to one another that can never be interrupted by big tech overlords. Over the last 7 days, we've seen literally thousands of you come to our rescue. And you've done it in two ways. You've signed up for our free newsletter and you've officially joined our Insiders Club. Those two acts alone are enough for us to collectively stand together and never, ever have our relationship severed. So I'm inviting the rest of you to do the same today, just by clicking on that link below and signing up for our newsletter and joining our Insiders Club. You are guaranteeing that there is nothing that big tech can do to get between us and make us feel like we're in a digital solitary confinement. It's as simple as clicking on the link below right now and opting into our free email newsletter. And once you do that, you can financially support us by joining our Insiders Club. Gang, from the bottom of my heart, I cannot thank you enough for your support during a time like this. You are my heroes, and it will be my mission to express my appreciation for every single one of you each and every week.